Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and today, as you could already tell by the title of the video, we are going to be discussing the match that's just finished a couple of hours ago. Celtic heading over to Copenhagen, getting themselves a 1-1 draw in the last 32 of the Europa League. Now, I know the video is probably a little bit later than anticipated, forgive me, I only finished work at 10, but saying that, I did manage to get the whole game watched, so I'm not going to be coming across from a misinformed angle. I did manage to get the whole game watched despite working, and I'm here to give my views, my opinions on what we've seen unfold and what to expect as we move forward into the second leg next week when we bring it back to Celtic Park in a position where, you know, it's favourable, a position that could have been far worse, and with a late VAR call in the game could have been very, very different. So, you know, before the game, if you said to me, you know, go walk away from Copenhagen with a 1-1 draw, I would have taken it. You know, this season away from home in Europe has been completely different to previous years with Celtic. You know, before Neil Lennon came back in for his second time in charge of the club, our away record in Europe was absolutely abysmal. You had no faith heading anywhere, really. And under Lennon this year, it's completely changed. The result in Rennes, the result in Rome, and now the result in Copenhagen, showing very positive signs. And we'll talk about the complexion of each half in a moment, but it's just so much different now. I actually went into this game with a lot of, you know, positivity, a lot of hope for the team, and I feel like we were incredibly unlucky to walk away with a point when you judge off the first half performance anyway. And I'm sure everybody will have a similar opinion. You've probably seen everything that has to be seen on Twitter and other social platforms already, but subscribers want to see my views and want to hear my opinion, so that's why I'm here talking about my own here in this video. So, you know, going into the game, you look at the team, it was a decent enough side fielded by Lennon. I think the main kind of criticism a lot of people had was with Johnny Hayes starting left back. We'll come on to individual performances as the video moves on. Christie started over on that left-hand side, which was obviously a bit unusual, not used to seeing him play there. He's either number 10 or at a push, playing out on the right-hand side, so it was a bit weird seeing Christie in there. He decided to leave El Yunusi on the bench. I can only imagine that was down to fitness issues and the fact that he's not started a great deal of games over the past couple of months after picking up an injury. So it was understandable, but it wasn't what I expected to see. But we got the job done. First half, first, you know, 10 minutes of the game, we could have been up 2-0, and we should have been up 2-0. Odds on Edouard will be kicking himself, despite redeeming himself with a fantastic finish only a little bit later on in the game. We should have been up 2-0 within 10 minutes, and it's really frustrating, really irritating knowing that we had those chances. We had the chances to wrap up the game within the first half. You know, we could have went into the break 3-0 up, 3-4-0. We had some terrific chances that we just didn't take. And even at that, the intensity from the team was absolutely tremendous. Copenhagen looked scared. We looked really up for it from the minute the ball was kicked. Despite Copenhagen, as soon as the whistle went, they really came out for it. You know, they really pushed Celtic. You can see that. They pushed high into the back line, but Celtic got the ball forward, and within 25 seconds, we had a shot on goal, which should have been a goal. Copenhagen kind of got unnerved by it, and the whole first half was a completely dominating performance by Celtic. And it makes me think, what if Griffiths was fit today? What if we had the option of Lee Griffiths in that squad? If he linked up with Edouard maybe later on in the game, maybe if he was just starting the game, if he was just available altogether, he could have maybe brought on an intensity to continue into the second half, but he obviously wasn't available. We can't control that, and it's a shame because it really could have changed the game up when it did get a lot more stale in the second half. Throughout the first half, though, you had a lot of confidence thinking that Celtic could win the game. I kept watching, thinking to myself, right, it's no doubt that we're going to walk away here. It could obviously, there was a long way to go. Even when the half-time whistle goes, there's still 45 minutes of football to play, and a lot can change, and a lot did change. But throughout the first half, all I could think of, this is brilliant. This is reminding me a lot of the intensity that Neil Lennon brought throughout the group stage, and overall the intensity that we've brought in the last, you know, 8 games or so in the Scottish Premiership and the Scottish Cup. We've been scoring goals for fun, and it looked as though we could do the same away from home in Europe. But then half-time comes along, and everything changes. Copenhagen come out straight away, look like the better team. They just looked like a lot more comfortable. Obviously, things must have changed at half-time for them. The manager would not have been happy, you can only imagine, from what he's seen from his side. Neil Lennon, on the other hand, what else could he do apart from do the same in the second half? Copenhagen didn't allow it. They completely drained us. I don't know if the players got tired. I don't know if the same momentum was just gone, but Copenhagen got the job done early in the second half, and it changed the game completely. Once Celtic conceded that goal, it kind of opened their eyes, and it kind of made us think, right, okay, and we just couldn't return to the same sort of form that we had in the first half, the same sort of play. It just wasn't there, and it didn't go. I wouldn't say it went from bad to worse in the second half, because in all honesty, we weren't, you know, terrible, we weren't disgraceful. The team just disappeared, and it felt like from having 11 quality players in the first half, it felt like we had 1 or 2 in the second. It just wasn't the same, and everything just kind of crumbled into nothing. And Copenhagen, yeah, but incredibly unlucky. They could have probably went and scored another 1 or 2 in that half as well. Celtic also had a couple of chances. It just makes you think, if we took those chances in the first half, the game would have been done at half time, and we really must regret not taking those. Edouard especially, and I don't want to criticise Edouard because his finish for the goal was absolutely tremendous, and once again proving at the highest of levels how big a player he is, how good a player he is. He's one of the best players in the whole competition. That's not an exaggeration, that's not a biased Celtic fan saying that. He genuinely is one of the best and most talented players in the whole Europa League at the minute, and tonight's performance proves that once more. But if he took those chances in the first half, how different it would have been. After that goal went in, it seemed like Celtic got that kind of unnervy way that Copenhagen were in the first half as well. It just seems like it was sloppy, especially going back. You know, I feel like we were vulnerable, and it just wasn't as like they didn't look like they were sure of what they were doing. Celtic, it was just passes weren't looking great, and all over the park there was just problems you could pick out everywhere, and it just wasn't pleasant viewing. And then the penalty call comes along, and you're thinking, God, here we go. But once again, Fraser Forster. I mean, you talk about a goalkeeper. You talk about one of the best shot stoppers in Britain. Every time a penalty goes against us and someone is staring down the 6'7" stature of Fraser Forster, the one phrase that will come out of my mouth is Forster saving us. I will always have confidence, and yes, it goes off the post as well. But, you know, we got away with it. And it was definitely a penalty. There's no arguing. It's the first VAR call, of course, we've ever seen involving Celtic. And it was a definite penalty. But we got off light. And from that, you feel like Copenhagen could see the opening, and they were trying to push, but we did hold our ground. And the star player in the second half for me, Christopher Jullien, tremendous in making sure we did hold out. You know, he was putting in fantastic tackles. And that's a guy who played the whole game with a fucking bit of tissue up his nose because of the head clash in the first half. He looked really good. He just looked strong, and once again reiterating why we spent £7 million on a player like him. And yes, sometimes it does look as though he can be a bit weak, he can be a bit shaky, a bit nervous if you like, but once again, in the biggest of stages, he shows how good and how important he is to that backline, and he's hands down the best centre-half I've got at the club, and perhaps the best defender we have at the club. He's just tremendous at what he does. Ayer, I think, had a shaky start to the game, got into it a bit more. That partnership does work, and I feel like in the situation that we had in the second half, in Europe it seems to work. Ayer and Jullien, when they need to graft and they need to get the heads down, focus on the task at hand. They've shown it in Lazio when we had to be very resolute. They showed it in the other Lazio game at Celtic Park when we were getting bombarded with chances in each leg. You know, we can rely on them. They're very, very good when they have to focus. And despite Ayer having a bit of shakiness in there, I feel like having Jullien beside him is very comforting. I think that ups his game. Scott Brown, silly enough to go in with a rash tackle, get himself injured. I feel like that didn't help our case. It was annoying to see Brown go off. I feel like when he went off, we had no option but to switch to a far more defensive style. And yes, Brown's not an attacking player, but I feel like when we bring on Beaton, it changes a lot of the dynamic in the squad. And then we make a further substitute into the game, bringing on Siminovic, and that was at the point, you know, right, we're going for the draw here. We're trying to keep what is important, and that's a positive result going over to Parkhead. And I do understand the kind of mindset and taking a positive result back to Parkhead, and it's probably better off not to risk losing the game, because then you've got your kind of back against the wall over at Celtic Park. But I would have loved to have seen us bring that intensity back from the first half somehow, if we could have, to try and get another goal. But by bringing Siminovic and Beaton on, that kind of took all those hopes away. But at the end of the day, a 1-1 draw is not the worst result. I think if we can replicate that first half performance at Parkhead, we'll get the job done. But we can't take Copenhagen for granted, because in that second, for granted, we can't doubt, that's not the word, but you know what I mean, we can't, you know, overlook them. And in the second half, they've shown how decent a side they can be, and, you know, it only takes 1 or 2 mistakes at Celtic Park, and that's it. You know, tie over, and Copenhagen are heading through to the last 16. So, yeah, there was positives. I feel like over the park in the second half, the players disappeared. They should be disappointed, but, and it's an away European tie. Let's just, you know, kind of enjoy the fact we got a positive result, because, as I said, before the game, we wouldn't have complained. James Forrest, I feel like, does need to be dropped over the next few games. He was incredibly frustrating tonight. He needs to recover his form. I don't know what that entails, if it's bringing Shved into the team or maybe putting Christie out right. I just think Forrest has looked absolutely garbage over the past few games, which is a shame because we know how good he can be, and last year he's shown how important a player he can be, and even in this Europa League group stage he's shown that. So it was really disappointing his performance tonight. Johnny Hayes looked okay. Frimpong, I think, struggled, but obviously his first start back in the team in a game of such magnitude, and his first start in Europe as well, so we can't be too harsh on him. Everywhere else, quiet in the second half, first half brilliant. We need to replicate that. That is my views on the game. Hopefully next week we will go through, but we'll preview and predict that when the time comes. If you have enjoyed, you know what to do. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. It is much appreciated. And I see y'all next time.